Xtalks connects professionals in the life science, medical device, and food industries with useful content like webinars, job openings, articles, and virtual meetings to help you succeed in your career. This food industry-focused podcast brings together some of our editorial staff to share insights into the latest B2B industry news to help keep you up to date. This week on the show, we are discussing top trending specialty foods to expect in 2023 and a new food safety testing tool to detect foodborne pathogens. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Xtalks Food Podcast. I'm Sydney Perlmutter, Senior Food Industry Journalist and Webinar Moderator at xtalks.com, and this week I'm joined by Aish Rashid and Vera Kovacevic. Thank you for coming today. So I'm going to start us off with a really interesting technology that has come out of our home nation, Canada, recently. So a company called Sixth Wave Innovations, they're based in Halifax. They recently announced that their patent-pending accelerated molecularly imprinted polymer, or AMIPs, food safety testing technology has expanded its library of detectable foodborne illness-causing pathogens. And the AMIPs, the technology, it already includes E. coli, but the new tool will also cover the other big ones like Salmonella and Listeria. So Garrett Kraft, who's the VP of Innovation at Sixth Wave, said E. coli, Salmonella, and Listeria are three of the most prevalent bacteria associated with foodborne illnesses. The ability to rapidly test and detect these pathogens on food and processing equipment allows for immediate intervention and remediation that can reduce widespread contamination that results in loss of product, foodborne illness, and subsequent devastating economic impact to the food producers associated with product recalls. So according to the USDA, in 2018, there were over 1 million Salmonella cases that led to 378 deaths and cost $4.14 billion per year. And while there were fewer E. coli and Listeria cases and deaths, they still cost approximately $311 million and $3.19 billion per year, respectively. So from the identification of outbreaks to outpatient expenditures and lost wages, foodborne illness outbreaks cost Americans obviously billions each year. And Sixth Wave is hopeful that its food safety testing tool will reduce these multi-billion-dollar outbreaks. So in order to expand its scope, Sixth Wave integrated new bacteria-imprinted biosensor components into a prototype device, and initial selectivity data showed promising results that enabled quick, on-site, multiplex testing capabilities, meaning that users would be able to detect multiple pathogens at the same time. The advancement will allow the company to commercialize a set of rapid diagnostic tools for food safety testing. And one of the largest industry difficulties to food safety testing is the excessive cost of microbial testing equipment along with skilled labor. So the most common testing techniques include chromatography and spectroscopy for small molecule and heavy metals testing, as well as PCR, which we're all familiar with at this point, and immunoassay for pathogen detection. However, the company's AMIPs testing platform offers the food industry a fast, reliable, and cost-effective way to increase food safety testing frequency and ensure that the quality of food and beverage products. The nearly instant testing time, ranging from seconds to approximately 5 minutes, is much faster than the week-long turnaround of current methods. And such rapid testing time can reduce facility downtime and allow for more frequent food safety testing. Contaminated equipment can also be quickly identified and cleaned, resulting in smaller batches of tainted products that can easily be isolated before leaving the facility. And additionally, the testing can be conducted on-site at a fraction of the cost of currently used certified lab testing. Along with the AMIPs platform, Sixth Wave also developed its pathogenic amines detection system, or PADS, a sensing technology for the detection of biomarkers associated with food spoilage. Now, the prototype food sensor can easily be integrated into individually packaged retail meat products to help food producers monitor the safety of their product throughout the production process. These food testing technologies have the potential to address critical operational pain points in the food production sector and give consumers confidence in the safety of the products that they are buying. So obviously in this story, we have a lot of crossover in the science world and things, a lot of things that reminded me of things that we've spoken about on the on the life science podcast. But one thing I wanted to ask you guys is, did you realize how large of a cost was associated with foodborne illness outbreaks in the billions?
No, I had no idea it was in the billions. Like, that is an insane amount of money. Yeah, I can't imagine. Like, I even wonder, why is it that high? Was that number for like testing, or just like the money that's spent because there was already an outbreak?
Or maybe like recalls and things like that.
Yeah, so to my knowledge and what I was able to find from the USDA when they reported these numbers is that it ranges from like the start to the finish of a foodborne illness outbreak. So like the identification, and then the inpatient and outpatient expenditures, and then lost wages, and then the estimates of individuals' willingness to pay to reduce mortality resulting from these foodborne illnesses. So it's every step of the way, and that is unfortunately billions of dollars. And I can imagine, as someone who contracted a foodborne illness, how hurt and upset they would be, in addition to the illness itself. But it feels wrong and it wasn't your fault either, so obviously you want to be compensated for that as the individual as well. But I was also really shocked to find out how expensive these outbreaks are.
Yeah, I had no idea that the cost was so sky high, in the billions of dollars. But it makes sense now that you've outlined, Sydney, that it's from it involves every step of an outbreak, from diagnosis to treatment to rectifying whatever it was that caused the outbreak. So that's very eye-opening, I would say. And I think we kind of take for granted, really like how much of a cost and burden this is on people and everybody involved, from the manufacturers as well, of course, obviously. So, it only makes sense then to invest in new food safety testing technologies. And I think this company that's coming out with different innovations on that front, it's really great to see that they're using different tools and integrating different technologies to try to better food safety testing, because I think it makes sense for companies. I think maybe some companies don't realize that investing in these food safety technologies up front pays off in the long run. So I think maybe more and more companies might should pay heed to that, so that they can not only ensure public safety but also cost savings at the end of the day all around. So
yeah, exactly. And I think the two biggest things for food producers is cost. Obviously, you don't want to go broke, but you also do want to invest. And then second is ease of use. A lot of this testing is very scientific, and I wouldn't even know where to begin. And I think, as keeping it as simple as possible would really help, I think, to just the entire process, speeding it up. And the test that 6 Wave offers is happens very quickly, as opposed to the potential week-long turnaround of current methods, which I also thought was pretty long, especially when we're dealing with public health, to have to wait a week for results to come back. At that point, it's too late. People could have already contracted foodborne illnesses, and I think a week is far too long. And yeah, I mean, technology really has come a long way in terms of preventing foodborne illness, but of course it still happens, and we do need companies like this that are A, speeding up the process, and B, doing it a little more cheaply and more easily for food producers.
So Sydney, you've mentioned that it's much quicker than a week compared to conventional testing for food safety. I'm wondering, how quick is the 6 Wave offering? testing?
So they say that it's nearly instant. So it ranges from a couple seconds to approximately 5 minutes. So this turnaround is obviously so much faster. It's if we're going to compare it to, like, you know, the things we're used to, like COVID testing, it's like a rapid test compared to, you know, our PCR test, which obviously is more, at this point, we know it's more accurate, but just to give people an idea, like, of how quick it actually is. All right, well, moving on. So we saw a report from the Specialty Food Association Trend Spotter panel recently, and they predicted what will be trending in the specialty food space next year in 2023. So this panel, comprised of culinary professionals from diverse industry segments, they researched numerous specialty foods and companies to predict key emerging trends for the upcoming year. So the Specialty Food Association Vice President of Resource Development said, specialty food consumers are looking to make their meal prep easy but exciting, and that is driving many of this year's trends regarding convenience, packaging improvements, and global flavors. At the same time, they continue to care about how their food is grown and the health benefits it offers, giving rise to evolving sustainability, plant-based, and better-for-you trends. So I'm going to touch on a few of the trends that were predicted by this year's panel. So first is convenience. So as consumers have been increasingly cooking at home during and post-pandemic, the panel predicted that brands will focus on providing tools and recipes for at-home chefs to make meals that don't sacrifice authenticity, convenience, or taste. And examples of this trend were found at the Specialty Food Association's annual Summer Fancy Food Show, with a company, for example, Bella Sanlucci, offering sauce starters to help consumers create restaurant-quality meals at home. And meal kit popularity also led the New York Times to release a series of home cooking kits, with each kit designed by a guest chef to focus on one type of cuisine made with non-perishable specialty ingredients. Now, the second one is environmentally friendly foods. So the panel also predicted that consumers will be looking out for innovative packaging that can offer increased portability while lessening messiness, and brands should similarly look to improve messaging on their labels and tap into consumer values like sustainability. And continued sustainability and environmental concerns led environmentally friendly foods to rank second on the panel's 2023 trends. So specialty foods like mushrooms, seaweed, and jackfruit have been developed into different products, and pasta's pandemic-fueled comeback made room for more innovation with black rice, pumpkin, red lentils, and purple carrots. So the panel expects to see more from visionary entrepreneurs engaging in regenerative agriculture who are creating seed-to-shelf sustainable supply chains. And other trending specialty foods included better for you and functional foods. They'll also continue to grow in 2023, as well as an increased interest in bold and intense flavor experiences in the upcoming year, building on the hot sauce renaissance that started offering consumers nuanced taste experiences, equally prioritizing heat and flavor. Also, there's going to be a growing demand for alternative seafood amid emerging technologies that can provide traditional taste and textures. And other major specialty food trends that the panel identified included an increased desire for globally inspired condiments, sauces, and oils, interest in international fruit, beverage and snack applications, and a continued shift toward naturally occurring sweeteners. So I just threw a lot of things at you, but obviously there's a lot that we're going to see in the next year. And I always am interested to, look back at the previous year and see if they were correct. Now, I will do that again this time next year to see if they were correct. But based on what I've been writing about this past year, I think that this is a great indication of what we're going to continue seeing. I don't think meal kits are going anywhere anytime soon. I think just because you still can go to the grocery store now without as much of a fear, I think people really love the convenience of those. And it also gives them more like recipe inspiration and ideas, and it just cuts down on a lot of the time consuming elements of cooking. And in terms of environmentally friendly foods, I think younger generations are really leading this charge as well. And that doesn't include just the food, it also includes the packaging as well. But yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts. Were there any of these trends that stood out to you or that you didn't expect the panel to have predicted for next year?
I was just thinking, like, for the convenience, I guess we can talk about each of the three main topics you listed here, but for the convenience one, the New York Times released this series of home cooking kits. That just really reminded me of, is it HelloFresh that does those meal kits?
Yeah.
So it's like the similar idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
So essentially they're now a competitor, I guess, of HelloFresh, right?
So I think the main difference with the New York Times meal kits versus HelloFresh is that the New York Times one is made with non-perishable specialty ingredients, while HelloFresh typically will send like fresh produce and meat as well. So I think that the New York Times meal kits are a little less like, you still have to get some of the ingredients yourself. Unless they're using entirely non-perishable ingredients, which I feel like that's not really true. I feel like that's more of like a starter pack. And then HelloFresh is like the entire meal you get in there. But in the grand scheme of things, I would say, yeah, they're still competitors because it's still a similar service that they're offering.
Yeah, I always found it interesting when, for, I guess, the shipping of like, uncooked meat and stuff like that to people's houses. I mean, I guess they have like a way it's set up so that nothing really spoils in transport.
Yeah, I've actually done it before. At the height of the pandemic, I was ordering meal kits, and you know when it's coming, you know the day that it's coming, and it comes in these sort of, at least with like meat and things that need to be refrigerated, these like pretty sophisticated like ice packs, I would say. So they stay cold the whole time. And then, once you get it, you just discard those and put them in the fridge and they stay fresh. But yeah, it obviously has to be done on a much more local level. And I feel like, I don't know exactly which warehouse my specific packages were coming from, but I guarantee you that they have many around North America, just to keep the food as fresh as possible. Because, yeah, the logistics of that can be kind of complicated.
I also found it interesting with respect to environmentally friendly foods because I think, we kind of typically think about foods that have less of an impact on the environment in terms of the way they're grown, and just to find more sustainable ways of growing certain crops and certain foods and items. So that's a big part of it, of course. But I also like the packaging component, which we often kind of forget about, or we kind of think of it as a totally separate area, but it's not. It's part and packaging, if not aptly said, I guess. It's part and parcel of the food item. So I think that's really great that people are more aware of the importance of reducing packaging and having more sustainable packaging, and a lot of manufacturers are really paying attention to that. And I think personally that's, I've become so much more aware of that in recent years as well, especially when you're not just takeout, but like just at the grocery store, you're like, oh, well, does this really have to be packaged in this much plastic or things like that. So I think that's a very big area. And it's great that that's part of the overall, when we think about a certain food item, that's part of the overall, obviously, the footprint of that product, and that's being taken into consideration.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing that, fruit and not all vegetables, but many vegetables come in their own packaging, and it's their skin or it's whatever,
Yeah.
And recently I've kind of stopped using those like plastic bags at the grocery stores, because you're gonna be washing it anyway, and you can put them in your bag with your other food. Like it's everything's gonna be okay. You can imagine the things that these fruits and vegetables have gone through on transit,
Right.
to the grocery store. It's not like putting it in a bag is gonna like make it any better, or safer for you to eat. You're gonna wash them anyway. And yeah, like those prepackaged like fruits and vegetables, like it I understand convenience, obviously that's one of the main things, but then it's like, oh, they you can just cut it up, like it's like, but again, we have to balance like what they have to, like grocery stores and just corporations have to balance what consumers want, but also the convenience element, but then also the sustainability element. And often those two things aren't really intertwined, like when we think about it, because convenience often involves prepackaged foods and plastic and things like that. So hopefully we can find a way to merge those two things. But yeah.
I think the other interesting thing is that the panel predicted is about the increased interest in bold and intense flavor experiences, which is very interesting. I think we're definitely becoming a lot more global, obviously, but globally interconnected. And I feel like now more than ever, like we're so willing to try different foods and different flavors from different cultures, different parts of the world, and people are becoming more accustomed to or developing tastes for, newer flavors, like, the hot sauce phenomenon. And like, that's caught on so much in recent years, and people's, I guess, spice tolerances are going up and things like that. So I think that's really cool too. And I do see those kinds of changing tastes around me as well, in terms of like what I see people being more open to eating and trying. So maybe thanks to like social media and TikTok trends too.
I was just going to say that, actually. I know we bash social media and TikTok a lot for very good reasons, but sometimes it comes through and it gives us inspiration a little bit. I have absolutely tried recipes that I've seen on social media, and they lay it all out for you, and it's so easy. We no longer have to pay for cookbooks, and obviously people still do, and they're still like great resources, but we don't really have to anymore. Like, we have access to chefs and people from all around the world showing us really interesting recipes that we weren't able to see as easily like 10-20 years ago. And I think the element of also a lot of the times they're in a video is so helpful, rather than it just being written sort of, on a piece of paper. I think we like to see what we're going to get ourselves into in like a 60-second video. It's so easy. So we'll give social media credit for that one.
There,
We'll
let that one.
We'll let that one go.
We'll give that one to it's okay.
All right, well, that's the end of this episode of the Xtalks Food Podcast. If you like today's show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks, everyone, and see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Xtalks Food Industry Podcast. If you enjoyed our discussions today, please share the episode with your friends and colleagues, and be sure to subscribe in order to be notified when a new episode is released. To join in on the discussion, you can find Xtalks on social media, email podcast@xtalks.com, or comment on the articles directly. Links are in the show description. Take a moment to join our community at xtalks.com to get access to everything we have to offer, including webinars, job listings, virtual meetings, articles, and more. The views and opinions expressed in the podcast are those of the speakers sharing them. They should not be taken as professional advice and do not necessarily reflect the policy or position Honeycomb Worldwide. For further information, email us at podcast@xtalks.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.